possible because of viewer support for Revelation Foundation. Thank you for making it possible.
Thank you for joining us on The Late Show, Wednesday evening, and it's 12th of November, according to my notes. But thank you for joining us indeed. This is Revelation TV's opportunity to bring to you something quite different tonight. And I want to introduce my co-worker with me, Ian Bell, who's going to be helping me this evening. Good evening, Ian.
Thank you.
Thank you
Good
for
to see you.
Joining us again. Donald Buckley, Donal, I'll try and pronounce that correctly, is a lovely gentleman, as you can see. Great moustache, sporting as they say. He is an author and has recently published a book on Freemasons, and we're going to talk to him about Freemasons shortly and getting into whether a Christian or not should be part of the Freemasons. Now, I know this is a difficult one because they appear to do really good works, like Revelation TV, and also, what are the complications? What are the initiations? What is it all about? Because we've all heard different stories, haven't we, about Freemasonry? Is it something that is quite harmless and doing great works, as I said, or is there something a little bit that we need to know more about, or do we need to stay totally clear of it? Now, I'm being perfectly honest. I am sitting a little bit on the fence tonight, and so I don't have a big axe to grind. So I'm going to be learning along with you as well tonight. Now, the book, Freemasonry in Ireland, is what Donald has also recently published. As you can see, we have that on your screen. And but before we get into all of this, Donald, I would appreciate it if you would just share a little bit about yourself so our viewers can get to know you. We've got some lovely viewers out there. Church Without Walls, brilliant. They'll love you, mate. So just share your heart.
Yeah. Well, you're very popular in Ireland. It's
Really?
our favourite television station. We're praying for you all the time, and we're watching all the time. I think it's a fantastic resource.
Thank everyone back there for me. I really do appreciate that. It's lovely to hear. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm involved in a church called Jesus Church, and we're in County Mayo on the western seaboard. It's north of Galway, south of Donegal, and it's a very active intercessory church. I moved over there in 1997 when I retired from the army finally. And married to Céline with 3 children, Aoife, Cléna and Darren. Unfortunately, 3 of them have now emigrated, but however, we're still there and hanging on in there. And
Where have they gone? Where have they emigrated to?
One to the UK and 2 to the States.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, well, don't
so
worry. One day we're all going to be reunited, if we're not with our families and our friends.
And they'll
everything.
all come back when you need them, when they need you. Don't worry about that.
That'll be very soon.
To pay for the wedding, I promise you.
So, Donald, with all of that, how long ago was it that you were in the army? What have you been doing of late?
Well, I left in 1997. I'm involved at the moment in writing the latest book on Freemasonry, as you mentioned. I do military history, I do battlefield tours, and very busy with the church. And other than that, there's no time much for anything else.
So, did you do sorties or whatever it is that you call them? That's more like something for the RAF, isn't it? Sorties. Yeah. But I mean, what sort of last sort of battles or wars were you in?
In person?
Yeah, in person, or were you just somewhere left at home?
No, well, the Irish Army is probably not very well known about in the UK and in other countries, but our role is basically internal security. And during all the terrorist years in Northern Ireland, we were on the other side, on the border, maintaining peace there, ensuring that the weapons weren't moving, that terrorists were moving, and disrupting what we could disrupt. We're also very much involved overseas, and I spent 2 tours of duty in South Lebanon, near the Israeli border, and we spent 8 months as an observer in the Western Sahara. And that about sums it up.
Okay. Well, let's get back to the topic itself, looking at what Freemasonry is all about. But before we actually do that, we'd like you to look at a clip which Ian had the privilege of interviewing Pastor Graham Geddes, who's a former Metropolitan Police officer or constable and a Freemason. And have a look at this clip first. It might set the scene for the rest of the evening.
It's a great pleasure to introduce to you Pastor Graham Geddes. Graham is the pastor of the Ark Christian Fellowship in Fuengirola, and he is a pastor now, but he used to be a policeman. And we're going to talk to him this evening about his time as a Freemason. Graham, there seems to be a lot of policemen who are Freemasons. Why is that?
I think it's because it's like a club that when you get a group of guys working together, it's like a club they're belonging to, and it's something that appeals, I think.
Was there any advantage in being a Freemason?
Personally, for me, no, but I could see the possibilities of that. In the lodge I was in, I was of a higher degree than my superintendent, so in that sense he would be under me in that way, or behind me, if you like, in the lodge. Yeah,
and so you did one favour for one and someone else did a favour for them?
Well, the idea is that if you can give someone a helping hand or a leg up along the way, and you know that they're another Mason, then you go out of your way to do that.
Okay. How did you become a Freemason? Did you actually apply to become a Freemason?
You don't actually apply. What happens is that you are approached by other Masons in your workplace, and they see what you like, and then they will come and say to you, would you like to go to be on the square?
On the square? What's on the square?
That's a very good question, but it's to do with some of the imagery of Masonry. The square where you measure joints and things. Okay. And the idea is that that's the way they refer to it, and did to me anyway. Yeah.
There's lots of people who say that Freemasons say, well, it's a Christian organisation. I mean, did you ever say that?
Often to my wife, who was a Christian when I joined. Yeah. I wasn't. But I said, well, you know, we have vicars in our lodge. We sing hymns. Yeah. We acknowledge God, although we don't call him God. They don't call him God in the lodge. But I said we were singing hymns tonight, and that she was not impressed.
Yeah. She was not impressed?
Not impressed.
Not impressed at all.
No.
So how long were you a Freemason?
About 5-6 years of my life was involved with that.
And did you always feel comfortable being a Freemason?
Before I became a Christian, yes. I really enjoyed it. It was a great social time, you know, if you like to eat and drink, and it was great. I did enjoy it prior to becoming a Christian.
Yeah. Now, I don't know whether you're going to give secrets away which are under threat of death or whatever.
I'm free of that.
You're free of that now, okay. But we often hear tales and talk about all these rituals that Freemasons have to go through. Is there any truth in this?
There's certain serious threats are made against you if you divulge any of the secrets of Masonry to others who are not in the Masons.
Yeah. So what sort of rituals did you have to go through?
I mean, initially, on my initiation, you have to roll your trouser leg up, bare your left breast, I can't remember too much about it now, thankfully, and they would blindfold you, so that when you entered the lodge, you didn't see anything you shouldn't have seen. They had a lanyard around your neck, and also someone who would have a sharp knife on your chest, so that you couldn't rush in. And then they would stop you. They would lunge at you if you tried to run in, and then they would use the lanyard thing to pull you out from the other end.
Did you have to make promises?
You make promises. You make all sorts of secrecy promises. Yeah.
What sort of promises?
Well, not to divulge any of the secrets of Masonry to anybody that's not within the Masons.
So why do you feel free to talk about it this evening?
God set me free.
Oh, God set you free. So when did you leave the Freemasons?
I became a Christian late in life, 1987. And although no one has ever spoken to me about Masonry, some people knew I was a Mason, but I had this thought that this doesn't seem right to me, and I tendered my resignation and lost quite a few friends in the process.
You actually lost friends?
Yes, people wrote me off because...
What do you mean wrote you off?
Because I'd betrayed the Masons and I'd resigned, and they took exception to that.
Yeah. When you say they wrote you off, what do you mean? They didn't
Well, they just
blanked you?
like in the parlance of today, they unfriended me.
They unfriended you, like on Facebook?
That wasn't around then. But
was it more serious than that?
Oh no, I mean they had mostly retired, the ones that had introduced me to the Masons, but so I just received letters saying we're not friends anymore.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure there'll be viewers watching this evening who actually will be where you were and will say, well, this is a Christian organisation, it's harmless, it's about mutual help and assistance. What's wrong with it? Is it compatible with being a Christian?
In my opinion, I would say not.
Why not?
Because there's no alluding to God, being God. There's no mention of Jesus Christ in it anywhere. They talk about God as being the grand architect of the universe, the great architect of the universe, but they don't actually mention his name anywhere even in the hymns that they sing.
When you say they sing hymns, what sort of hymns are they? Are they the normal hymns that you get in a church hymn book?
Well, as a non-Christian, I thought they were fine. It sounded okay to me. Not being used to singing hymns, it seemed this was a good thing.
Yeah.
I tried to convince my wife this.
Yeah.
But she wasn't having any of it.
Yeah.
She was
obviously wiser than you.
Yes, obviously.
Wiser than you. So, how did you become a Christian?
Well, I met Jesus when I went. This is quite a story to tell, but cutting it really short, I met Angela. My wife used to go with our children to Bible Week, and I used to take them down to the Bible Week, and then I would set them up in a tent, and then that would be my signal for my holiday. I would have a week off at home. Then I would spend the next 6-7 days in the bars and in the pubs, and drinking late and sleeping late and going out the next night. That was my break, my holiday. And then this time, they'd only been gone 2 or 3 days. I woke up one morning, there was a note on the mat on the front door. It said, came home last night, couldn't wake you. My son was sick. Our son is sick. We're around at a friend's house. Can you come and get us? So when I received that note, I was so angry that they'd come back so soon that I decided, I got in the car, drove around to where they were, put them back in the car. My son was still being sick, and I said, you're not ruining my holiday. We are going back. You are going back down to finish this week off. I'm still in my holiday. And so I got back to the camp where they were staying, and it was a beautiful day. The sun was shining. Angela made me a cup of tea, and then they went off to their meetings. I was sitting in the sunshine. I'm thinking, this sounds all right. This seems okay here. And that was my big mistake. I started to get interested in what might be going on here. But I carried on. They would go to their meetings. I would go to the pub in the evening. Then I would meet them at the back of the tent. After the meetings, we'd all go back to where we were staying. And this particular night, I went in to the back of the tent as normal. I had a couple of beers, and I was stood at the back. I walked in, I heard a guy called Larry Tomczak. The only words I heard that night were, there's a young guy from Northern Ireland who's just entered the tent, and God wants to meet him tonight. Yeah. And that was it.
Okay, so after your conversion, did you actually meet any of your ex-Freemason colleagues, and did you tell them your testimony?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I did, but I also could recognise the signals, so I used to have a bit of fun.
Yeah. So we're in the last literally 30 seconds. What would you say to anybody who is a Freemason now and wants to get out of Freemasonry? What would you say to them?
I would say that have a look down through the many degrees, follow the line of the many degrees that there are, and just see where it all ends up, and you'll be surprised.
Graham, thank you very much for spending the time with us, and thank you for helping us understand the whole setup of what it means to be a Freemason. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Pastor Graham Geddes, former Metropolitan Police Constable and Freemason, formerly. It's quite interesting, really, listening to what Pastor Graham was saying, and we'll get more into those sort of questions that you may have, and I have as well, listening to that. So if you want to take part in tonight's program, live at revelationtv.com, and also the text number will come on your screen where you can send your SMSs. Keep everything quite short, because if I have a quick look and it's too long, I'm afraid we're not going to be able to deal with it, because we don't have the time to just read all of that out on air or beforehand, because we're doing this on the fly. Now, Ronald, the things which would help our viewers, I think, and myself, is just tell us what Freemasonry is all about, and when was it established? How did it get established?
There are two distinct aspects to Freemasonry. One is the public image that they portray, and one is the private image that they don't like people to know about, secret side here. The public image, is, as that pastor described, he said it's a fraternity. They're involved in good works. They come together for each other's company, and all is very well. The Freemasons go out of their way to try and recruit people now by showing what good works they do, how much money they spend on charities. The Shriners, who are a sect of Freemasonry, are specialised in children's hospitals and children's medicine, and each lodge will have a particular function and a particular charity that they always take care of. In more recent years, they have deviated away from, or that's the right word, I don't know, from Masonic charities and gone to charities in general in order to progress their public image. And they want to be seen as a nice, touchy-feely, do-goody type of organisation, which they are on the surface, because they do good works, but good works don't get you into heaven. He spoke about the initiation, and he's right, but he was rather tame about it. They are far more graphic and far more blood-curdling, if you like, in reality. The initiation ceremony is designed to scare the living daylights out of the initiate, that he will never, ever, ever even dream of breaking his oath to the Masons.
But he did. But he has. So...
Can I talk about that? Because afterwards, we only had 10 minutes to talk about it, but afterwards he shared with me exactly how he got release from the, as it were, promises. And what happened, he went to a particular pastor, and he was having issues in his life. And the pastor said, "Are you a Freemason?" He said, "Oh, were you a Freemason?" Yes. He says, "Have you still got the regalia? And have you still got the books?" He says, "Yes." So he went home. He and his wife Angela went home, took the books, took the regalia. And if you remember, the regalias have the aprons and sashes and all sorts of things. And the books he had were handed down to him, were thick. And he had a fire in his back garden.
He burnt them.
And he burnt them all. And he burnt them all. And from that time, he felt release. And he felt able to talk about Freemasonry.
So, looking at scriptures, this is something the Freemasons do. So, if they use the Bible, then surely that would be incongruous with other things, that the symbolisms that they have, which we can learn more about, and the rituals that take place. Because from what I hear, I mean, I've never had anybody like yourself who's been in the Freemasons and come out. We hear that there's a lot of that, if you like, basically at the top is Satan. Now, that's quite radical in actually saying that, isn't it? How can we prove that, if that is the case, when there's all this good works that goes on? Is it because at the entry level you don't know anything about it? Maybe I'm jumping ahead a bit in the story.
First of all, let me correct you. I was never a Freemason.
All right, sorry. You're writing on it. Oh, it's only Pastor Graham that was. Sorry, I beg your pardon.
But just let me give an example. You have the first 3 degrees of Freemasonry, the craft degrees. You've got the apprentice, the fellows, and the master masons. Now,
just give me those again, so that our viewers also can take this in. There's the 3.
The 3 groups at the bottom of the chain, as it were, in Freemasonry. It's the apprentice, the fellow, and the master masons.
The fellow.
Yeah.
And the master masons.
Yeah.
Okay.
the three basic levels in Freemasonry.
Okay.
Now, each has their own password and each has their own hand grip or handshake. Nobody in that group will know what happens at the next group, and all the way up the chain, they're never allowed to know the secrets of the group that's above them.
But how do they climb?
By invitation.
Okay, so when you say never, it's not...
Until they move through, should I say.
Yeah.
The majority of Masons don't progress beyond the first three stages and have no idea what happens at the upper levels, as it were.
How many levels are there altogether at the upper levels?
Well, there are 33 degrees. In fact, it goes to 100 degrees.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other 30 are the ones that are really difficult to get to.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I'm intrigued at this point and asking, if you know the answer because you've written on it, is what do they have to do to progress to each stage? Is it something that's in their character, or something in the good deeds that they do, or is there something else that suddenly somebody recognises this is going to be a good person to have in the next degree, and is it a little bit demonic?
Well, a little bit demonic. I can't give you a direct answer to your question, but it's like any other organisation where you see potential that somebody will be fit for promotion. They are invited to become promoted and to go through.
Because it begs the question: why is there so much secrecy? If it's an open society and there's nothing to hide, then what? Just people should know. It should say, look, if you want to get to the 33rd, this is what you have to do.
Yeah, they don't like to be called a secret organisation. No, they like to be called a society with secrets, and they play it awful. Everybody's got their secrets. Every organisation's got their secrets. We have ours, but they go to extreme lengths to make sure that nobody betrays those secrets or talks about those secrets.
On the threat of death.
On the threat of death.
I mean, that's got to say a lot in itself. I mean, it's like saying, well, you can come into the Church of Jesus Christ, and if you want to be an elder or a deacon, once we get you to those points, we would never say it's under threat of death if you reveal anything to do with that. So there's something quite suspicious about that.
Suspicious, not just him. Let me steer you back to the question you asked me about the origins and the degrees. The origins are based on a mythical structure, on a mythical history and mythical legend that they have constructed about the construction of Solomon's temple. Now, they talk about Hiram and Biff, the master mason, or master builder, who was mentioned in 1 Kings 7 and 2 Chronicles 2, that he was tasked with the architecture and the building and the supervising of the construction of the temple. And there were three groups of masons, literally stonemasons. There were the apprentices, the fellows, and the masters, and each had their own particular signs and passwords. Hiram and Biff was killed by one of the lower groups in order to extract from him the information needed to be known as a master mason. And that's what the whole myth is built on, and what the ceremonies and the initiations are built on. When you go into the apprentice degree, as the gentleman pastor was describing, you're brought in with a cable jar around your neck. You have hot and cold daggers pressed against your skin. You have loud reports banged. As you go up the degrees, the violence increases. And for example, at the level of master mason, you could be, say, put into a blanket. You could be kicked around the place. You could be lashed by bristles or thorns or whatever. But what they do then is, when you are dead, when they push you into a coffin to simulate death, you're then grasped by the hand, the lion's grip, and you're raised up into new life. It's a total mockery of the Bible and of being born again.
What happened to Christ? It's a mockery of what happened to Christ, really.
But it's a mockery
death
of
and the resurrection.
Yeah, but exactly. But it's the whole process of being born again. It's being born again in Mason, and it's totally anti-Christian from that point of view. The name.
How did you find this out if you were never a Mason?
That's an interesting question too. If I can find it out, never having been a Mason, how come the Masons aren't interested enough themselves to find out?
Yeah.
Because it's there. The information is out there.
How do we know you're not making it up?
Because again, I'm depending on the testimonies of Masons or former Masons who became Christians and who have written books or who have put articles on the web. And a lot of deliverance ministry on the website explains the whole process as well. Ministers who are involved in pastors who are involved in ministry, in deliverance, will say that the greatest block that they have in delivering people is those who are involved in haven't taken Masonic oath. It's a major block.
Can I read some emails, because it actually goes straight to the point that you're making here. And thank you for the brief emails, so they're so much easier to read and get to the point. First one is from Sheila Malone. She says, I'm glad you're discussing this topic. I'm in the healing and deliverance ministry, and I've been in it for a number of years. It's one of the main routes for a lot of trouble and wounding in family. I've witnessed many instant types of spiritual, emotional, relational and physical healing when it's been renounced. This so-called charitable organisation is completely spiritually contaminated and opens up many demonic doors. And then there's a one from Maura Kenny. Thanks to Captain Buckley for sharing and getting the information out there. Members of my own family have suffered greatly because of Freemasonry. And just one more. I want to thank Captain Buckley for tackling this difficult subject. I was always wary of Freemasonry, but tonight I realise just how dangerous this organisation is. The church badly needs educating in this area. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you very much for taking part in it. It is a difficult one, but it is good that now that we can have a live discussion and also open it up, as we say, to our viewers, because lots of people hear stories about Freemasons, and it's not really, cannot always be verified. That's the thing. So I have to say that this is, as far as our audience is concerned, it's somewhat hearsay.
Yeah, it's very difficult to put your finger on, and it's very. If you said to me, "Well, what is the influence of Freemasonry now?" and give me an example, it's very difficult to reach out and touch it. But once you know how their mind works and how their rituals work, you begin to see evidence of it everywhere. In architecture, in symbols. For example, the black and white symbol. You see, say in Westminster Abbey, the floor is black and white. That is the basic symbol of equality between Lucifer and Jesus that they use. It was the battle of the Templars, the battle boson flag of the Templars, and it's omnipresent. You see it on the UK police forces, on the checkered cap band is black and white. You see it in Amazons. And once you start to see these things, they're everywhere. It goes back to Egyptian sun god worship, which brings me up to the obelisk. Obelisks, you see them everywhere.
What's an obelisk?
The tall
columns.
Columns, exactly, but sort of triangular in shape, and not circular.
Right.
They originated in Egypt, and I could go into it, but it will take time. It's to do with Egyptian sun god worship.
So when you were talking about the temple stones, which had to be crafted, and they were made originally for Solomon's temple, are we talking that the Freemasonry went back to that period, or was it something came in the 10th, 11th, 12th century?
Yeah.
Or Knights Templars and all of these other Rosicrucianists, are they also ones that are involved in this?
Everything is linked spiritually, and you're dead right. They go back to Solomon's temple for their ritual, because that's where they draw their energy from. There is, like everything else demonic, there is an amount of truth and an amount of construct. The truth would be that they draw their spiritual inheritance through the temple. When you consider that the Jews were captive in Egypt for 430 years, this is where the Kabbalah came from, and where the occult sect of the Kabbalists came. This would have been brought back to Jerusalem, and this would have been picked up there, say, from through the Knights Templar. It gets more involved. Also, when you had the expulsion from Spain of the Muslims and then the Jews by Ferdinand and Isabel, more of this was brought out, and more of this was spread into Western Europe. Now, God forbid that I would ever cast any aspersions towards the wonderful Jewish people. I'm talking about the Kabbalah sect in particular, and what they brought out of Egypt and what spread into Europe through the Masons. The Templars went out initially as a protection force, they said, from pilgrims that were travelling from Western Europe to the Holy Land. And they established a bodyguard system, or protection system. They established a banking system where a pilgrim could lodge money in a Templar position, say in France or Germany, and along the way write a check, as it were, all the way back. The Templars were finally kicked out of the Middle East, kicked out of the Holy Land by the Saracens, but they came back immensely powerful with military strength and with knowledge and with wealth. Now, this is going back to the name Masons again. They discovered the secrets of masonry and the secret of building magnificent cathedrals with massive domes letting the light in that weren't supported by the columns that were heretofore used in Western Europe. And people were just amazed and were saying, well, this is obviously the hand of God holding up these magnificent edifices. They trained their own stonemasons, and they employed masons who were not indentured to any state or any church or any landlord. They were free men, so they were called Freemasons. Now, where they were, the buildings that they built while they were involved in the construction of the cathedrals were known as lodges, so that's where the Freemason and the lodge came. And initially, they were guilds of stonemasons and craftsmen. This changed in the 1600s. They brought in people who were the Illuminati from Bavaria. They brought in people who were educated, people who were men of letters, etc. And they became speculative as opposed to operative masons. And within a very short time, in the 1600s, the speculative masons took control of the whole Masonic organization.
Who was the main guy who came out of that part of Europe, as it is today, that actually started all of this? Manly Hall? Is
that name is one of them, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's just coming back to me now.
Yeah. The Illuminati and like-minded people, including Masons, met in Bavaria in 1617, and they said, our mission is to bring down Christianity.
Thank you. Yeah. That's what I needed to hear, something, as strong a statement as that. Yeah. So, because otherwise people just say, well, so what? Just leave them alone.
Yeah.
Freemasonry is that dangerous, really,
Absolutely.
in that sense, to the Christian church.
May I ask? I mean, I remember reading when I read your book, what surprised me is how Freemasons were very influential, for example, in the foundation of the United States of America during the Revolutionary War, as we would call it, the War of Independence, as they would call it, and the revolution in France. And it, first of all, comment on that. And secondly, do you think they're influential today in a political way?
There's no doubt about it.
Okay. Yeah.
Tell us how level. Yeah.
Well, at every level.
You're not going to get out of here. I'm sorry.
Yes, we've got so much to ask.
Yeah, that's it. Put the log fire on.
Yeah, putting one's finger out again is difficult. But the whole concept of the New World Order, the control of economies, the control of populations, the microchip. I mean, this is the realm of the conspiracy theorists again. But you'll find that in the chain of command with the senior Masons, the 33rd degree Masons, the Illuminati, and the Ascended Masters, and all in the triangle of power, those who control what is happening are in Satan's power and are all linked in the same chain of command, as it were.
I mean, this is scary, but the thing is that people who are just at the lower levels are just going to go, this is rubbish.
This is rubbish.
What you're talking about.
Conspiracy theory nonsense, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's so. With their main aim is to destroy Christianity, would you say that what we're seeing in just our own country, for example, United Kingdom, that successive governments and especially more liberal government influences are actually bringing down Christian values anyway and are persecuting in small ways to start with, but are they going to come out and persecute Christian organizations like us? I think we're going through some stuff at the moment. We don't have to get into that tonight. Yeah. Do you think there is somebody at higher levels that just wants Revelation TV not to exist, that could be connected with Freemasonry?
I would have no surprise whatsoever if I heard that were the case. I mean, everything Christian has been knocked down. Obama's administration has certainly contributed to that in the States. It's happening in Britain, it's happening in Ireland, it's happening all over Europe, where secularism is the order of the day. And how dare you promote Christianity? You can promote Muslim, you can do anything you want.
I know.
But mention Christianity and how dare you?
Yeah.
That's not fair, that's not PC. The whole PC thing is dominating Europe, dominating America.
Well, isn't it the top of PCs, that checkered flag?
Talking about PCs, I mean, talking about PCs, why, for example, I used to be a member of a golf club, and I knew several of the folk who were Masons. Why? And they were all Metropolitan policemen. So why is it so prevalent, for example, in the Metropolitan Police?
Because it's linked to the judiciary, and it's linked to who's found guilty and who's not found guilty. And you might have probably come across cases in your... But this guy has to be guilty, he's going down, and all of a sudden he's scot-free. I mean, there were some famous cases like that.
I just remember a story Graham told me, and you may be able to confirm. Graham, the pastor Graham, he said that he knows of a case where a constable was brought up before a disciplinary board, and he had to give a special signal of how he held his feet, which gave the signal to the man who was the chair of the disciplinary board that I'm a fellow Mason. And this guy, is that possible? Is that true?
Yes, 100% accurate, yes.
So,
hand signals, foot signals, you name it.
yeah. I'm intrigued now because I'm not going to try and turn this into, a
conspiracy thing, yeah.
Yeah, but not also something that's going on with Revelation TV right now, where I believe we're being persecuted at a higher level. We're trying to be found guilty before we've even had a trial or an inspection. Okay, and I wonder, there's something not quite right about this. Even the public have brought the complaints. Certain people have brought complaints about Revelation, and we've been accused of basically pinching the money, okay, which we haven't. We can prove it. But the thing is, they'd already made this announcement to the general public. Do you think maybe there's some Freemasonry, I know I'm reiterating the question, that actually has an agenda because they said, look, this is an opportunity to take a Christian Revelation TV channel out and off the air?
Well, I can't, of course, say, but how often is a situation where an organisation is being accused, hanged, drawn in quarter and found guilty before the investigation? How often is there a motivation to go for you, particularly because you're a Christian station? And how often is there
because we're effective.
Because you're effective, yeah, and you're not into popularity or people-pleasing or money-raising. And how often is a station that gives biblical truth and biblical truth only going to be very unpopular with many sections of society, especially those who would like to control it?
Especially if they're Luciferian.
Exactly. Exactly.
Makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Hi, folks. Enjoying the programme. As far as I'm aware, nobody who was in the order and left it was injured or murdered for leaving it. That's the point he's made. It says a point here, which you might want to comment. It says the White House is laid out in Mason symbols, and also it appears on the dollar bill. Mason, so you maybe like to comment on that. Thank you for covering this topic. How does one bring this topic and concerns up in one's church congregation if some are uncomfortable to discuss it?
Good question.
Good question. One more. Thanks for Revelation Television for discussing this topic. Thanks to Donald for exposing Freemasonry for what it really is. I've seen many people receive great healing and freedom when they were delivered from the powers behind Freemasonry.
Right, you can remind them one by one. First of all...
Okay, the symbols.
Yeah.
The White House, the dollar bill.
Yeah, the White House...
Picture of the dollar bill. We might be able to find that in a minute.
Yeah, it's got the...
To talk about the White House first, where they're
Yeah.
going to search for the dollar bill.
Yeah, well, the White House and all of Washington is designed with Masonic planning. When the Capitol building was being, the cornerstone was being laid for it, George Washington, who was a Mason...
and you could see that on his apron that he wore.
Absolutely,
yeah,
with corn oil and all the other so-called sacred symbols that they use were buried with the foundation stone of the Capitol building. Washington itself is laid out with various Masonic iconography and architecture. In fact, the only Confederate general to have a statue dedicated to him was one Albert Pike, and that's in Washington, which is extraordinary. He was a senior Luciferian and who specialized in explaining the concept of Freemasonry from the inner side. It was people will believe what they're told. Our Masons joining at a junior level will be told what suits them. We will ensure that they're gullible enough to believe what we tell them because people are too stupid to handle the real truth. Paraphrasing slightly.
That is, no, exactly. I've heard this from the late Barry Smith, who taught a lot on exposing what was going on in the Freemasons. Yeah, this is all coming back now. It's making sense.
Can I just ask one more question? This is from Graham Geddes, the guy who gave this. And you might not know the answer to this, but you may. He says, who is the Chief Mason in the UK?
Well, that's where the royal family became involved. At the end of the 18th century, when there was a possible threat that the whole organisation would be proscribed, a lot of effort went into meeting was it William Pitt was the Prime Minister at the time, and then the British royal family got involved, and there has never been a question that there be any move against Freemasons since. The Duke of Kent is your Master Mason.
The Duke of Kent is the...
But the Queen would not be involved in any of this.
I don't know.
But the Duke of Kent is the chief Freemason.
He's the Grand Master.
Is the Grand Master.
Yes.
Is that widely known?
Yes, it is.
Yes,
Yes.
And he's quite proud.
He appears in his regalian. You can find him on the net.
Yeah.
Is it? My goodness, he's a fisherman. Sorry, I'm joking. All right, go on.
Dollar bill.
Dollar bill. Let's have a look at the dollar bill and talk us through what you're seeing.
Okay.
You can't find it.
Oh, can't find it.
We had it the other day. Oh, you got to get it off the internet. Sorry.
Okay. Don't
Do
worry.
you know, just go to the bank.
You can talk about it, I'm sure.
Yeah, but we'll come back to the dollar bill because they can find it because they did it the other day. So let's look at some of the other things that really need to be discussed here. So how would you advise a Christian who's in the lodges or in Freemasonry, how would he best to leave?
There's an exit strategy which Freemasons acknowledge is called a demit as opposed to an admit. They say that two ways of leaving. One is you don't appear or you don't pay your subscription, then you're discharged as a base and worthless human being. And the other is that you just sign your resignation. Now, if there are any downstream implications for people who leave the Masonry, probably not, and so this is something more serious at foot. I wouldn't expect that he would be as successful perhaps in business or in that type of thing. Once he leaves, had he been involved in a mutual beneficial sort of system that the Lodge denies but it does exist.
Because I think everybody knows that.
Yes.
You're going to do better if you're in business or whatever line of career you're in. If you join a lodge, you're going to get that business from the other people who are part of that.
Yeah, they will deny that, but they are self-serving.
Okay.
Yeah, this particular person asked us not to mention his name. He says, I was in the Mormon church for 12 years. I became a Christian 25 years ago. Mormons go through the same rituals as Freemasons, making oaths and covenants, including I would rather have my throat cut and my entrails removed, and something to do with the sea and the tides. Right. They wear undergarments with Mason symbols on them. 5 years ago, I spoke with a Mormon who was a close friend. At the time, he asked where I was living now. I told him. He said, I'm going. Don't mention my name, please. He'll make my life a misery. Right now, sorry, the last bit I was a little bit confused. But is there a link between Mormonism and Freemasonry that we don't know of?
Well, any organisation that uses those oaths and goes through those initials, the initiation rites and rituals, there has to be a spiritual link. Take the Orange Orders. Yeah. I mean, goodness me, the Freemason organisation per se will kick to touch and say, not belong to us guys, nothing to do with us, because they are so-called, they have a different modus operandi and a different method of entry. Yeah. But, my goodness me, their oaths are even more blood-curdling. Yeah. Their penalties are, I mean, having your throat cut from ear to ear, your tongue torn out by the roots,
Who's this?
The Orange Order.
My goodness.
Yeah. Your entrails exposed to the ravenous birds of the air to eat. And I mean, I'm just giving you mild examples, but I mean, they are totally spiritually linked, as is any organisation which is involved in the same oath-taking and abuse of the Bible. The Orange Order will use the Bible to a greater extent than the Freemasons do. The Freemasons say that you must have a belief in a supreme being in order to get in, and they'll open the Bible, but they will have the dividers and set square on top of it. So in fact, you're taking an oath to Lucifer, because that is the symbol that they use for Lucifer, although they won't say it. The Orange Orders will be the same. There are various branches of the Orange Orders, but they're all the same. They have the purple and the orange and the black preceptory, etc. Their oaths are absolutely horrendous. I mean, and each one is a mockery and a takeoff of the Bible at every stage. I can show you all these oaths if you like later on, but oh goodness me, I mean, they're demonic.
Let's have a look at the dollar bill. I think we've now got on the screen coming up. Here we have one.
There you are. There's George Washington, who's a Mason, and down on the reverse side, on the bottom left, you have the Masonic pyramid, which is a big, big thing in their iconography. And at the top you have Annus Copius, and at the bottom, it's not my eyesight, it's just from memory now, Novo Ordo Seclorum.
Seclorum,
Yeah, which is announcing the birth of basically the new world order, but not
now, how long has this been on the dollar bill?
Since the 1930s.
Okay.
Yeah. And it shows the Masonic eye, the eye of Horus on the capstone.
Explain
which is to
what
come.
That is.
This is back into Egyptian mythology again.
Do you know where I saw that and I got the biggest shock of my life? When we went to Israel, you do go into various iconic buildings, and there was this church, Church of Nativity,
Yes.
in Nazareth, and the Eye of Horus is right up there above the altar. I think, why on earth is that there? Because that's Luciferian, for sure.
Look at the Vatican. The Vatican is dripping in Masonic iconography. You have an obelisk that Moses would have seen probably from Egypt. It was brought into the central square, surrounded by a sundial, surrounded by another demonic symbol in the centre, looking into where El Papa comes out and gives his blessings. Come back to Ireland, to Northern Ireland, and you have the burial place of St. Patrick and the cathedral, Down Cathedral, where St. Patrick is buried. The symbolism there is incredible. You have a token window to St. Patrick at the rear of the church, and up by the altar you have the Eye of Horus, you have Joachim and Boaz, the pillars, you have Hiram and Biff, and you have windows dedicated to 33rd degree Masons. I mean, at the centre of Christianity.
Wouldn't actually, that wouldn't register with people unless they knew about Masonry, Freemasonry, right?
Unless they knew, yeah.
Okay.
But then again, symbols are not dormant. Symbols are active. I mean, sounds a bit weird, but you put up a flag or a symbol, and to us humans, rational people, it means a certain amount of thing.
We talked about that last week when we talked about the EU, didn't we? The symbol of Europa on a bull.
And the spiritual word is like a homing device.
Yes, it's a homing device. It is signalling certain things to certain people, the people who know. Okay. Yeah. Can I just ask? I think it's really important that I'm sure there'll be viewers tonight who have actually just come to Christ or been in Christ and are Freemasons. You know, we need to be specific. Is being a Freemason compatible with being a Christian?
Under no circumstances whatsoever. It is the antithesis of Christianity. As Delpech, the French Grand Orient Grand Master, said, the time of the Galilean is now over. All these false worship and false altars are now to be torn down, and the great Luciferian God has to be put in place. The way they abuse the Bible, the way they abuse take their oaths. I mean, Christianity is the religion of love. This is the religion of violence and of hatred. There is no way a Christian can be a Freemason.
So what should a Christian do if they're caught up in this?
First of all, resign straight away. Second of all, destroy any Masonic symbolism or garbage that he has in his house. And thirdly, get in contact with somebody who's in deliverance ministry who can work with him to deliver him from Freemasonry. So many people walking around today will have spiritual connections with Freemasonry and won't even know it, because so many people were involved, so many families. In Ireland, during the 1700s, there were 620-something lodges. Everybody was involved because the Catholic religion had to go underground. There were no pastors, priests within the Catholic religion. They came to the lodge for fellowship and to get on, etc. And it became outlawed. When Catholic emancipation finally came in 1829, they began to withdraw from the lodges because the Vatican got sort of strong about it and said, okay, we're going to excommunicate you. But then there were other answers for them. The similar Catholic secret societies came into being, the Knights of St. Columbanus, the Ancient Order of Hibernians, etc., etc., all different sides of the same coin, all within the same pyramid of power.
I'm sorry, I was doing some family research, and I got a picture of my great-grandfather with a picture, and he's the Royal Order of something buffaloes.
The Royal Antediluvian Order of the Buffalo.
Yeah, okay. What is that?
Same mob.
Same mob?
Yes.
That's interesting. Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Let's come back to the book. Captain Donnell Buckley has written this book, Freemasonry in Ireland, and this is something that's available
on great difficulty getting them published.
My goodness,
I've no idea why.
I couldn't, yeah.
So I self-published it. It's not out on the market very long. In fact, it's not on the marketplace very long. If perhaps you could give people my email address, or if they write, if they Google it, a couple of outlets that are handling it at the moment will come up.
Okay. Do we have there's your oh no, it just hasn't got an email address on there. But that's do you want to give it out?
Yeah, it's dbuckley@anu.ie.
dbuckley@anu
Alpha November Uniform.ie.
Okay. We'll try and give that out again in a minute as well before we close. We're in a few minutes left. Some emails, texts.
Yeah, I mean, this is a quick one. Is there any link between Masons and the Quakers? Do you know of any? You don't know of any? Okay, that's a good, quick question. Another email. Finally, some truth about what Freemasonry is about. It's not a Christian organisation. It is pure evil. Thanks for having Captain Buckley on. I think we should salute you at the end of this, shouldn't we, really? I really appreciate people like Donald Buckley, who went to the lengths to find the information and is now sharing that information with others who will be set free from the bondage of Freemasonry. One more. Let me see if I can find one. Okay. Hi, guys. A great show. Does Donald think that Catholicism and Freemasonry are linked, and in what capacity?
Yeah, that's a touchy subject, all right. There are links. Of course, there are links. There's a Freemasonry lodge in the Vatican known as the P2. You go into... I have never been in the Vatican more than I've been... Well, I have been in a lodge, actually. But the symbolism of Freemasonry is everywhere in the Vatican.
Yeah.
I mean,
But then you mentioned with the royal family, and if they represent the Anglican Church, then you're also saying that that's somehow connected Freemasonry to the Anglican Church.
now, this is an interesting point. The churches have varying attitudes towards Freemasonry. The Catholic Church were very, very anti, but came back from the brink back in the 1970s. They still will say that, well, if you're a particular type of Mason, you're acceptable, and if you're a particular type of Mason, you're not acceptable. The Presbyterian Church in Ireland, of whom many are in the Masons, will say that it's not compatible with the teaching of Jesus, and therefore our brethren should not be involved in Masonry. The Church of Ireland say, well, they're very good people, they do wonderful works, and while everything mightn't line up in accordance with the Bible, well, we'll turn a blind eye to it. During the marching season in July in Northern Ireland, you will see Church of Ireland churches flying flags representing the Orange Order, representing the Royal Black Preceptory, representing all of the senior orange Masonic symbols, and flying it from the church steeples. Now, if that isn't disgraceful, what is?
But people would be oblivious to it. It's only for those who know. Or is it just like Satan stomping out his territory?
That's more or less it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're in the last couple of minutes here, Donald, and we just do appreciate you coming onto the programme. Anything here, just as a closer, that you'd like to share that was quite profound for our audience?
Well, all I can say is that I pray that being on the programme will open the eyes of some people, and that some people who are wavering, might have had second thoughts about it, please do entertain a second thought, because Freemasonry is demonic, there is no doubt about it. They will kick and scream and say, no way, we're a charitable organisation. They're not. They are of Satan. And if you are a Christian, you cannot be a Mason. In fact, you cannot be in the Orange Order.
Wow. Seems very strong. What got you started in this search for truth in what's going on behind the Freemasons?
I'm a historian, small h, and somebody said to me that the whole story of Freemasonry in Ireland has been totally ignored. It's never even mentioned, and it must have had a profound effect on our history. And maybe I should do something about it, maybe write about it. And there's the part 1 of the product. Part 2 book on symbolism, etc. is coming out, hopefully, before the end of the year.
One tiny little thing which will interest you is that there's we've had a number of emails saying there is a link between the Freemasons and the music industry in Britain.
Really? Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I'm out of that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, in these closing seconds here, just remind you, the Freemasonry Northern Ireland by Captain Donald Buckley. Do get onto the internet and do some research. But you've got D. Buckley, ANO, is that right? ANU.ie.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, for you, gentlemen, and for you at home. God bless you. Hopefully we'll be here tomorrow and we haven't been taken off the air. Bye.
The programme you've been watching was made possible because of viewer support for the Revelation Foundation. Programmes take time, effort and money. If you'd like to make similar programmes possible, then please send your gift to the Revelation Foundation. The details are on the screen. All of us at Revelation TV want to thank you for viewing this important message and to welcome you to explore further all of our programming. There are so many ways of watching Revelation TV: by Sky, Freesat, Freeview HD, the Roku Box, and of course through the internet. If you would like further information on Revelation TV, please contact our office on info@revelationtv.com or by writing or ringing the address and telephone number on the screen. With God's blessing and your support, we're believing for Revelation TV to reach an ever-growing audience with the truths of the gospel. Thank you, and God bless you.
This is 6-year-old Zafu, going to collect water for her family. Children like Zafu have to spend hours doing this every day, and unless something changes, they'll do it for the rest of their lives. Zafu collects water which contains parasites, germs, and animal waste. And today, like every day, almost 1,400 children will die from dirty water and poor sanitation. It's a deadly lottery. There is one thing you can do that will change everything for girls like Zafu. Give them clean water. By simply calling or texting WaterAid now and giving £2 a month. It will give children the time and energy to go to school and the chance to earn a living, to be healthy, to live rather than just survive. WaterAid has projects planned to bring clean water to over 2 million people this year and has a mission to end the water crisis permanently and globally by 2030. A promise of £2 a month from you now is all it takes to help make this happen. Do the one thing. Text WaterAid to 70099 or call 0800 011 4321 now.
If you saw this,
What are you doing?
you wouldn't turn a blind eye. And if you saw this, you'd make sure Sam got help. And you wouldn't ignore this. But the chances are you won't see child abuse. And today, thousands of our children are at risk. Will you call 0800 923 4834 and give £2 a month to help the NSPCC reach an abused child? Today, only 1 child in 9 is getting the help they urgently need. Right now, somewhere in the UK, a child needs you. Your £2 will help us find them and take immediate steps to protect them. So call 0800 923 4834 now and help us reach a child like Alice in time.
prophecies that reveal the future of the world, your future. 10 indisputable signs, undeniable evidence that we are